Right. So I want you to picture a scenario. And honestly, it's something I think most of us have felt, probably around 11:30 on a Sunday night.
Mm.
You're lying in bed, you've got the blue light from your phone lighting up the room, and you're doom scrolling. Maybe you're looking at an old friend's profile, someone you haven't seen in a few months, and then it hits you.
That sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach.
Yeah, that really specific, heavy sinking feeling. It just feels like everyone else is moving at warp speed.
Right.
Someone just closed a huge funding round for their startup. Someone else is posting about their journey to Bali. Even the people who seemed, totally lost last year suddenly have all this momentum. And you are just standing still on the sidewalk.
Watching all the traffic go by. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a very, very specific kind of alienation. You feel like the world is spinning forward and you've somehow been, like, unhooked from the gears.
Exactly. And for the guy we're talking about today, his name is Arjun. This wasn't just a Sunday Scaries thing. This was his whole life.
Mm.
Arjun is the person we're doing our deep dive on today. And his reality was watching all his peers level up while he was, basically collecting dust. Same job he didn't really like. Same routine. Same list of unfinished dreams from 3 years ago.
And I think the most painful part for him, and really for anyone listening who gets this, is the story he told himself about why he was standing still.
Right. He didn't think he was confused. He didn't think he was tired. He woke up every single morning, looked in the mirror, and gave himself this one brutal diagnosis. I'm lazy.
And that label,
Yeah,
it's the ultimate conversation stopper, isn't it?
it is. But that brings us to the mission of this deep dive. We're unpacking a set of insights that are titled, You're Not Lazy, You're Just Stuck. And I have to be honest, when I first saw that title, my skepticism radar went off. I thought, okay, come on. Are we just playing word games here? Is this just a semantic trick to make us feel better about, binge watching Netflix for 6 hours?
I had the exact same reaction.
Ah,
I really did. It sounds like a
yes.
comforting lie we tell ourselves to avoid accountability.
Ah.
But as you dig into the psychology behind it, and specifically the way our nervous system handles pressure, you realize the difference between lazy and stuck isn't semantics. It's a massive physiological distinction.
So that's what we're doing today. We're going to deconstruct this myth of laziness. We'll look at why the standard just do it advice actually makes things worse for people like Arjun.
Right.
And we're going to find the counterintuitive rule you need to actually get the gears moving again. But I want to push back on you right away. Surely some people are just lazy, right?
Oh, absolutely. Laziness is real. It exists. But we have to define it properly to understand why it wasn't Arjun's problem.
Okay, so how do we tell the difference? Because from the outside, Arjun just looks like a guy on the couch. How do you tell the difference between someone who's genuinely lazy and someone who's just stuck?
Visually,
Mm,
you can't. They look identical. No action is being taken.
right.
But internally, they're polar opposites. And here's the heuristic the source gives us, which I think is brilliant. Lazy people are having a great time.
They're enjoying it.
Yes, truly. True laziness is a choice. It's leisure. It's restorative. If you decide to take a day off, lie on the beach, do absolutely nothing, and you feel great about it, that's laziness. Or, more accurately, rest. You are comfortable doing nothing. You're at peace.
Okay, that makes sense. Rest is intentional. So what's the experience of the stuck person then?
The stuck person is exhausted doing nothing.
Oof. That actually hits hard. Exhausted doing nothing.
It's a state of high internal friction. Source calls it a silent war inside Arjun's head. He wasn't enjoying his downtime. He was miserable. He was scrolling, but his mind was just screaming at him the whole time.
You should be working. You're failing. You're behind. Why aren't you moving? All of that.
So he's burning just as much energy as if he were working, but none of it is translating into motion.
Precisely. It's like revving the engine of a car while the parking brake is locked.
You're burning gas, the engine is overheating, the whole car is shaking, but you aren't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why stuck people are so tired. It's not from work. It's from the war in their own heads.
That reframes the guilt completely because the outside world looks at Arjun, his parents, his boss, and thinks, oh, he just doesn't care. If he cared, he'd do something. But the reality is almost the opposite.
He cared too much. He cared so much it paralyzed him. And to understand that paralysis, we have to look at the root cause.
Right.
So in the narrative, Arjun meets up with his old mentor, Ravi. In this scene, it feels like the real pivot point. Ravi doesn't give him a pep talk, does he?
No, and thank God for that. I think if Ravi had said, just believe in yourself, Arjun might have just walked out.
Yeah.
Ravi just sort of plays the objective observer. He sees Arjun spiraling, listing all his failures, and he asks this one question that just cuts through all the noise. He says, "What are you afraid will happen if you actually try?"
What are you afraid will happen if you actually try?
Oh,
It's such a heavy question.
it is. And, usually the default answer is, "I'm afraid I'll fail." But the source suggests it's way more complicated than that for Arjun.
It's much deeper. Arjun hesitated because the real truth was, well, it was humiliating. It wasn't just fear of failure. It was fear of the end of the fantasy.
The fantasy. Unpack that for me.
Think about it. As long as Arjun stays on the couch,
Right.
as long as he doesn't write that book or start that project, he can tell himself, well, I'm smart, I'm talented. If I really applied myself, I could be great. The potential is still there, pristine and untouched.
Ah, I see. It's the potential buffer. I could be a contender, I just haven't started fighting yet.
Exactly. It's a safety net for the ego.
Yeah.
But the moment you try, you put that potential to the test, and if you try and you fail, you confirm your absolute worst fear, that you weren't enough, that the potential wasn't even real.
Wow.
So staying stuck is actually a defense mechanism. It protects your ego from the reality of your own limits.
That makes stuckness sound almost like a survival strategy.
It literally is. And this is where we need to, science this up a bit. When we talk about being stuck, we're not talking about a character flaw. We're talking about the amygdala.
The part of the brain that handles threats, the alarm system.
Right, the fight or flight response. When the brain perceives a threat, and in Arjun's case, the threat is failure, judgment, the collapse of his self-image, it triggers a freeze response.
So it's not a metaphor.
No, not at all.
Yes.
His brain is reacting to the task of writing a report the same way it would react to, like, a predator in the bushes.
So his body is flooded with stress hormones, his muscles tense up, and he just freezes. He's not being lazy, he's terrified.
Exactly. And this leads to that term the source used that I loved, invisible weights.
Mm.
I loved this imagery because Arjun felt like he was carrying 500 pounds and nobody else could see it.
Let's talk about those weights, because I feel like in 2026, those weights are heavier than ever. It's not just, I hope I do a good job.
No, it's so much more insidious. The task on his to-do list might say, write 1 page. That's a 5-ounce task, physically. But attached to that task are these massive, invisible weights,
Like what?
like the expectation of immediate success. We live in this algorithmic world where we see the top 0.01% of success stories every time we open our phones.
Right.
So Arjun isn't just sitting down to write. He's sitting down to compete with the 19-year-old billionaire he saw on TikTok this morning.
Right. Or the economic pressure. If I don't nail this project, I might get laid off, and then I can't pay my rent.
Exactly. Or family expectations. I need to prove my parents wrong. All of a sudden, writing 1 page isn't just writing 1 page. It becomes a referendum on his entire existence, a trial for his worth as a human being.
No wonder he couldn't lift the pen. The pen weighed 1,000 pounds.
And heavy things are hard to lift. And when you attach your entire self-worth to a simple task, you make it too heavy to move. Your brain looks at that weight and says, whoa, absolutely not. That is dangerous. Do not touch it.
So this is where most of us, Arjun included, try to fix it with force. We try to just muscle through the weight. This is the part of the story that really frustrated me because I've done it a million times. Arjun watched the motivational videos. He read the David Goggins quotes. He set the alarm for 5 a.m.
The new me protocol. I'm just going to grind.
Right. And it worked for, 24 hours?
If he was lucky, usually it crashes by lunchtime.
So why does that fail? Why does that burst of, I'm going to change my life, energy always burn out so fast?
Because motivation doesn't remove the weight. That is the critical flaw in all the hustle culture advice.
Right.
Motivation just yells at you to carry the heavy weight anyway. It adds emotional pressure to the structural pressure that's already there.
It's like adding more weight to the bar to motivate yourself to lift it.
Or, going back to our car analogy, it's just stomping on the gas pedal while the parking brake is still on.
Yeah.
You might lurch forward a few inches, but eventually you're going to blow a gasket. The source explicitly calls just work harder dangerous advice for stuck people. It breaks them.
Because if you're stuck, you're already using maximum effort just to exist under that stress.
Exactly. Effort is not the problem. The problem is the parking brake.
So we need to release the brake. We need to take the weight off. This brings us to Ravi's rule, which is the core actionable insight of this whole deep dive. He told Arjun, movement comes after safety.
Movement comes after safety. This just flips the standard script completely.
Mm.
We usually think movement comes after, inspiration? or after confidence.
Yeah.
We wait to feel ready.
I'll start when I feel motivated. I'll start when I'm not scared anymore.
Right. But Ravi's point, and the psychological reality, is that the brain needs to believe that the effort won't destroy you before it will release that brake.
Yeah.
You have to establish safety first.
Okay, but how? How do you create safety when you're terrified of failure? How do you convince your amygdala to just, chill out when you have a deadline?
You lower the stakes drastically. Ravi gave Arjun a strategy that sounds almost ridiculous. He told him to make progress so small, it feels embarrassing.
Embarrassing. I love that word choice. Not just small. Embarrassing.
Yes. 5 minutes. One single email. One paragraph.
I can hear the listeners resisting this right now because I'm resisting it. If I need to launch a startup or write a novel, doing 5 minutes feels like a joke.
It does.
It feels like I'm lowering my standards, like I'm admitting defeat.
And that resistance, that voice saying, this is pathetic, that's
Yeah.
your ego. That's the pride that is keeping you stuck. Arjun felt it too. He thought it was beneath him. But the goal here isn't productivity in the traditional sense. The goal is to lower the threat level.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. Why does small work on the brain?
Okay, so if you tell your brain, we're going to write the best chapter ever written, the brain sees a massive threat. High chance of failure. It shuts down.
Right. Freeze.
But if you say, we're just going to write 4 or 5 minutes, and it can be absolute garbage, and then we are allowed to stop, the brain pauses. It assesses the threat.
And it realizes, okay, 5 minutes of garbage, I can survive that.
Exactly. It sneaks right past the fear response and bypasses the amygdala. You're essentially tricking your nervous system into engaging. And here's what happened to Arjun. He tried it. He set the bar on the floor. And a really strange thing happened. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became consistency.
This is the aha moment. Once he started moving, the fear started to recede.
Because action dissolves anxiety. You can't be paralyzed by what-ifs when you're actually in the middle of doing.
But I want to touch on the identity piece here, too, because Arjun didn't just change his schedule. He had to change his language.
He did. And this is so crucial. He stopped introducing himself to himself as lazy. He stopped saying, I am a procrastinator. He started saying, I'm rebuilding momentum.
I'm rebuilding momentum. That feels so much kinder. But does changing the words really change the behavior?
It does. Lazy is a static state. It's a concrete block. Rebuilding is a process. It implies construction. It implies that you're a work in progress, not a failed product. But there was another massive realization Arjun had about energy. He realized he'd been waiting for energy to arrive before he started working.
Which is the classic trap. I don't have the energy for this right now. I'll do it when I feel fresh.
But he discovered the physics of the human mind. Energy is created after you start. It's a byproduct of movement. Motivation follows action, not the other way around.
It's the flywheel effect. It takes a ton of effort to get that first turn, but once it starts spinning, it generates its own power.
Precisely. And the fuel for that flywheel wasn't hype. It wasn't, listening to Eye of the Tiger. It was trust. This is a really subtle point in the source, but it's beautiful. Arjun had broken so many promises to himself, I'll wake up early, I'll finish this, that he just didn't trust himself anymore.
Yeah, self-trust is the first casualty of being stuck. You feel like a flake. You stop believing your own plans.
So by setting the bar embarrassingly low, I will do 5 minutes, he could actually keep that promise. And every time he kept a small promise, he put a tiny deposit back into his self-trust account.
So it wasn't about the output at all. It was about proving to himself that he could show up.
Correct. He was rebuilding the relationship with himself.
And another trap he avoided was the clarity myth. I hear this constantly from friends. I don't know what I want to do with my life, so I'll just wait until I have a clear vision before I start.
The I need a map before I take a step fallacy. It's so paralyzing. Arjun learned that clarity didn't arrive first. Action did. Direction followed movement.
You can't steer a parked car.
You can't steer a parked car. That's such a relieving thought, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to know the destination. You just need to move 5 minutes down the road to see what's around the corner.
Yeah.
The view changes when you move.
Yeah, it does. But what about the comparison piece? Because even if Arjun is moving, he's moving slowly. He's doing his embarrassing 5 minutes. Meanwhile, his friend just sold a company. How does he stop that from just crushing him?
That was the final hurdle, for sure. Comparison freezes you because it makes your small efforts look useless. Why bother doing 5 minutes when they're running a marathon? Arjun learned to change his metric. He stopped measuring himself against others and started measuring yesterday versus today.
That's the only comparison that matters. Did I do a little bit more than I did yesterday?
It was enough. And that steady movement, that release of the pressure valve, that's what brought him out of this stuck state.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of psychological ground here. We've gone from the Sunday scaries to the amygdala to the flywheel effect. If someone's listening to this and they are just nodding along, maybe they're feeling that exhaustion we talked about, what is the big takeaway?
The summary is this. If you feel lazy, but you are also exhausted, you are not lazy, you are stuck. You are likely overwhelmed, afraid, or burned out. And these are not character flaws. They're signals.
Signals that something needs adjustment, not punishment.
Exactly. Stuck people don't need a drill sergeant. They don't need more shame. They definitely don't need to scream at themselves in the mirror. They need permission to start small.
And I think we need to emphasize the no viral success part of Arjun's story. This didn't end with him buying a yacht or becoming an influencer.
No. And thank goodness for that. The result for Arjun wasn't fame. It was just steady movement. He got his agency back. He stopped waking up with that feeling of dread. And frankly, getting your life back is a much bigger win than a yacht.
It really is. It's about getting back into the driver's seat of your own life.
If I could leave the listener with just one thought to chew on. We live in a culture that glorifies the grind, the big leaps, the go hard or go home mentality. But maybe the most productive thing you can do right now, literally right this second, isn't to try and conquer the world. It's to lower the stakes until you feel safe again.
Lower the stakes until safety returns.
Because once you feel safe, the movement will happen naturally.
That is such a freeing idea. Stop trying to lift the 500 pounds.
Just lift the pen.
Just lift the pen. We're going to leave it there. Thank you for walking us through that. That was, honestly, I needed to hear that today.
I think we all did.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you on the next deep dive. Take care.